Greetings, people of the interwebs. Jake here. Let's talk a little bit about Marvel, shall we? So, as I'm sure we're all aware, Marvel's not been in the best state in the last few years. It's been a very kind of rocky road, which has been unusual for Marvel from pretty much since day one with Iron Man up until Endgame. It was pretty much nothing but, you know, fan fan enjoyment, overall critic enjoyment, and just good times. Golden era of Marvel movies and overall comic book movies in general for the most part. But ever since then, it's been very mixed, or at least in my opinion, it's been very mixed with like their movies and shows. Mostly not good stuff, with a few notable exceptions like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Spider-Man No Way Home, and WandaVision was pretty good, except that last episode I wasn't super crazy about. And then everything else for me has been kind of like I liked maybe 60% of that movie or that show, and then the rest was not great. But digressing. So, and then of course with the recent installment of Deadpool 3, which a lot of people have kind of been uh, saying this is the reset button on Marvel, and saying that like, oh, this could save Marvel and all that stuff. Which first off, I really don't think the movie reset the Marvel universe at all, because Deadpool 3, I don't know, like it was kind of really more of an homage and love letter to the Fox universe and those movies, as opposed to kind of being a direct MCU movie, like kind of fit, or at least fitting directly into the MCU, because obviously it's multiverse, and so yes, it is. This is the first Deadpool movie to officially be in the MCU, but it's still not really directly tied to it, other than just kind of poking fun of the multiverse not working as a whole, which really like that gag, and um, I don't know, but it was overall pretty self-contained, and even though I definitely think it's the weakest of the Deadpool films, like again, I overall enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. Plot was a little weak, but not gonna dive super deep into like a Deadpool review or anything like that. Because also, regardless, this movie's already doing really well financially, and I'm sure it'll continue to do really well. Even though, I'd say after a couple of weeks of the movie being out, that's when people start to kind of, I don't know, you'll start to see more like more mixed reviews start to come out from both fans and critics alike. Because for the most part, it's been nothing but praise, and people just touting the movie being like a fun time, which again it is, definitely is. Um, but I feel like even had the plot been a bit better, again, in my personal opinion, I still don't think it would save the MCU, because I just don't think. I think there's been so many disappointments, again, both like financially, critically, that it'll take more, like a few more hits for Marvel to kind of be rejuvenated. Thankfully, it's not quite in as dire state as Star Wars, because Star Wars is basically on life support right now, which is unfortunate, because it used to be like the most beloved, popular franchise on Earth. Now it's not. But digressing. Point is, Marvel, yeah, it's definitely not been in the best state in the last few years, but there's still potential to again kind of revitalize the franchise, because again, it's not on death's door like Star Wars. It's got a few broken bones and maybe a couple broken limbs, but it's able to limp along and do like function, do daily stuff like a normal person would be able to do if the MCU is a person. And so I think that again, if they have a few more hits, then we'll start to talk, and there is potential there, because one, with Captain America: Brave New World, that movie was basically almost reshot from scratch, and which I guess here's the kind of tricky thing with that movie is, so honestly, like, I guess full disclosure, Deadpool and Wolverine was the last movie that I really, or Marvel project I had really any interest in, and now that it's over, I don't really care about Marvel all that much. Like, I don't really have any interest in like any of the upcoming movies or shows. And however, with that being said, again, there's potential to Like, my interest is peaked because during San Diego Comic Con, the Russo brothers were confirmed they're coming back for to direct Avengers 5 and Avengers 6 Secret Wars. And that's promising to me because the Russo brothers, in my opinion, have directed for the best MCU movies, being Captain America the Winter Soldier, which I still think is the best and my personal favorite of the MCU movies, Captain America Civil War, and then Infinity War and Endgame. And they're bringing the writing team that, wrote all four of those movies as well. So, again, that gives me a little bit more hope or optimism that, they're Marvel are course correcting after some not so well received movies and shows, and again, some flops like the Marvels, or movies that lost them money like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. So that's smart. They're a business, and they're wise enough to realize, hey, what we were trying to do, we were just kind of like throwing stuff at the wall and seeing it worked. Turns out, if you don't really have a plan, that doesn't work. So good on them for kind of realizing it. Is it too late? Well, I don't know. We'll see. Because a big question too with Avengers 5 and 6 is who even are the Avengers anymore? Because a lot of our heavy hitting characters, like Captain and Iron Man, they're dead. Or some other characters are kind of just, I guess, MIA. Or I don't know. For me personally, there just isn't a huge interest either in some of these characters because, like, Thor: Love and Thunder, I was really pumped for that movie because Thor's one of my favorite Marvel characters, and I was really excited that they were taking one of my favorite, or probably my favorite Thor storyline that I've read, the God Butcher from the comics. Love that comic series. And I was excited that they're bringing Gore and, kind of doing a loose adaptation of that storyline from the comics and making that a movie. Unfortunately, that movie was not very good. It felt more like a parody of the MCU than an actual MCU movie. But again, not going to go into a review of that. Just those are my basic thoughts. So even my interest in, like, say, a Thor 5 or Thor just coming back to the MCU in some capacity, I just don't have as much interest. Same thing with Doctor Strange. Even though I think Multiverse of Madness, I enjoyed more of that movie than I disliked. And I think it's a good Sam Raimi movie, but not a good MCU movie or even that good of a... I don't know, it felt too much like a sequel to WandaVision that it did Doctor Strange, which was kind of one of my biggest problems with that movie. But anyways, all that to say is I think that, again, some of the interest has kind of started to wane, and even with Captain America Brave New World, even though they have done a lot of reshoots, and that trailer actually looked more in line with, like, the Winter Soldier in terms of, like, tone, looked a little bit more grounded. I think that's one thing that Marvel should have done, like, focus a little bit more on instead of multiverse, is after Endgame, scale it back down so that way you can build back up to this big grand, to Secret Wars. They didn't, which, whatever, nothing we can do about that now. But the problem, though, with not Winter Soldier, Brave New World, is because that movie, I think, was supposed to come out last November, but again, they basically reshot almost the entire movie, and now it comes out in February of 2025. And the reported budget is around like $400-something million because, again, all the extensive reshoots. So that's just the production costs. So not including marketing, which is starting to ramp up because we got that first trailer. So we're definitely going to start getting more trailers and teasers and TV spots and stuff like that in the next coming months in preparation for February. But with marketing, that's probably another $200 million to market this movie. So this movie needs to make like a bare minimum of like close to $1 billion just to break even. Not make profit, just to break even. And so even if this movie is great, even if this is, like, say, on the same level as, again, what I would consider the best MCU film, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, even if this movie is that good, or that quality, that level of quality, I still don't know if this movie's gonna make its budget back. And so that's kind of the unfortunate thing with some of these movies or TV shows where they have, like, done a lot of reshoots, like Daredevil Born Again got massive reshoots, which that's a little bit different because that'll be on Disney Plus, so it's a streaming show compared to a movie. But even still, they're clearly spending a lot of money on all these reshoots and rewrites and stuff like that, which will hopefully work out for the best. But again, the thing is, with Brave New World, hopefully, because, I would love nothing more than for Marvel to go back to, like, the quality of those first three phases. But again, I feel like even if, like, some of these new shows and movies are higher quality, like better writing, tighter scripts, I think it's still going to take, like, a few more hits for them to kind of, like, get back on track and get, build excitement up to, Avengers 5 and 6. Um, maybe this is just my opinion. I'm no expert or anything like that. But again, it just seems like to me the excitement has been very muted in comparison to, again, those first three phases of Marvel with a lot of these upcoming projects. And also a movie like Blade, which has had consistent delays. And it blows my mind because Blade is not a super complex character. It shouldn't be that hard to write a script for Blade. Like, just, and I mentioned this in the Pacey Bell podcast I did with my friend Elijah, episode 4. But essentially, I would just make, like, Dredd, the, Judge Dredd remake with Carl Urban that came out a few years ago. Essentially take that basic premise of Dredd just going into, like, this, skyscraper filled with, gang members and stuff like that, and he just going floor to floor, take them out. Take that, but with Blade, and have Blade go into, like, I don't know, again, a big apartment complex or something like that, and he's just cutting down vampires. You don't need a huge budget. You don't need again, the script should be super simple, but for whatever reason, they can't seem to crack that code. So I'll honestly be surprised if that movie gets made, or at least with Mahershala Ali being attached to it as Blade, because I imagine that man is super frustrated that it's been 5 years. Yeah, I think 5 years. It was 2019. 5 or 6 years since that movie was announced, and not a single frame of that movie has been shot. Because, again, for whatever reason, Marvel can't get their shit together and write a good Blade script. But anyways. But also, kind of going back to the Comic-Con news, is... So Robert Downey Jr. is coming back, which there was a lot of rumors that he was going to come back, and obviously most people suspected he would, come back as Iron Man, because multiverse, you can bring dead people back to life, and, whatever. Which I will say, I'm glad he isn't coming back as Iron Man, because even if it was an Iron Man from a different universe, I don't know, it still kind of undercuts the emotional, sacrifice that Iron Man, he sacrificed himself in Endgame to basically save the galaxy. And so, even if it wasn't the same Iron Man, I don't know, to me, I just think multiverse works a lot better in the comics than it does, like, it doesn't translate as well in films. And also, it kind of just takes the stakes away, because you can kill off all the characters you want and just bring them back as a variant. So that's another reason to I haven't been super crazy about this multiverse saga. In addition to it just not being well written overall. But also, so that was kind of a big shock to see Robert Downey Jr. come back, but as Doctor Doom, which I feel like is just a weird choice. And not to say that, like, obviously he'll do great, because Robert Downey Jr., he's a fantastic actor, and so I think he'll do great as Doom. But I just think that's such a weird decision to have him come back as Doom, and a part of me feels like it's kind of a gimmick. Obviously, I could be proven wrong by the time Avengers 5 comes around, and if I bother to go see that movie. But as of right now, it feels a little bit more like a gimmick, and possibly even a sign of maybe a little bit of desperation from Marvel, because things have not been working for them, so they brought back, the Russo brothers, two of their best directors, and also bringing back Robert Downey Jr., even though he's not coming back as Iron Man, they're still bringing back one of their most popular and well-known actors in the MCU. And that's kind of where I think it's maybe a little bit of a gimmick, where they're bringing him back to, like, build up the intrigue of, like, oh, well, what's he going to be like as Doom? Which, in a way, is, I guess, kind of a smart idea. A lot of it will just come down to execution. But as of right now, and maybe I'm just a little cynical, just, again, because Marvel have not really been impressing me lately, that it's coming across more of, again, a gimmick and possibly signs of desperation that it is, like, a groundbreaking, revolutionary idea that they, or have come up with for their multiverse saga. And even though I love Doom, like, in my opinion, I think he's Marvel's best villain, and he's such a complicated and nuanced character that I think, again, having an actor of Robert Downey Jr.'s caliber is a good fit for Doctor Doom. But I still think it would have been better to cast, whoever, because again, I'm sure he's just going to play a variant of Doom for Avengers 5 and Secret Wars, and then after that, the real Doom, who will have playing Doom in the future Marvel Fantastic Four films, whoever that actor will be, I'm sure that'll be like their main continuity Doctor Doom. It just seems odd to not introduce that Doctor Doom first, but I don't know. It just, again, it's a weird decision, and I feel a little mixed about it, but I guess that tracks with how Marvel's been, again, pretty much since everything post Endgame. Is I have very mixed thoughts on a lot of the decisions and shows and movies that they've made. So that tracks. But I don't know. I guess again, there is potential for Marvel to kind of recreate the hype, and which, well, I guess I should say I don't think they'll ever get to the same level they were in those first three phases, because that was lightning in a bottle. No studio, no franchise will ever recapture that or get anywhere close to that, because again, that was just a phenomenon. And so even if they do start to again rebuild themselves, rehabilitate themselves, I still don't think they'll be at that same level as the first three phases. And I don't know, I guess I'm curious, where do they even go after Secret Wars? Like, do they just essentially reboot the universe? And if they do reboot the universe, then how many people are gonna be invested and care with like a new actor playing Iron Man, a new actor playing all these other iconic roles? And so I don't know. I guess that's kind of where I'm at with Marvel right now. Is I'm intrigued, I'm interested, especially again with like the Russo brothers coming back, and with Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Doom. But as of now, I don't think I'm intrigued or interested enough to where I still want to stay committed to keeping up with all the movies and shows. I think I'm just at the point where, if Captain America 4, like a lot of people say it's really good, gets a lot of good reviews, and, friends who I trust their opinions on recommend it, then yeah, maybe I'll go check it out. But, and same thing with any other movies or shows that are coming out in between now and Avengers 6. Yeah, I might check them out. Again, but only if like they're just highly recommended, have great like raving reviews on how good they are. But if they're kind of like middle of the road or not great, like again a lot of the other Marvel movies and shows have been lately, then yeah, I think I'm just checking out. Much like I have with Star Wars, which you can check out that video on why I don't care about Star Wars anymore here on the channel. And anyways, I don't know. I guess that's kind of my very typical fashion of rambly way of kind of giving my thoughts on not just recent Marvel news, but also my thoughts in general on the current state of Marvel and things going forward. But that wraps up this rambly video. Give me your thoughts below. Where are you at with Marvel? And are you excited with the Russo brothers coming back and Robert Downey Jr. coming back as Doom? Are you kind of on the fence, or are you like completely checked out of the franchise altogether? And also, again, want to promote the Pasty Pale podcast. I've got 5 episodes so far, and basically it's just me. I get a friend together. We kind of just hit record and see where the conversation goes. It's a lot of fun. We talk about just about everything from comics to anime, and Lord of the Rings comes up pretty much every episode, and a lot of pop culture, but also just non-pop culture stuff, just life stuff, interesting conversations. So check those out, and then do the usual YouTube stuff of liking, commenting, subscribing, all that jazz. So until next time, everyone, cheers.